Hello everyone, this is Dean Hill, your independent candidate for United States Senate, coming to you on the eve of Independence Day. That will be July 3rd because we celebrate Independence Day on July 4th. We won't get into when it was actually signed. But I did want to tell you a couple things I want for you to mull over on Independence Day because it's just that. The plan to end ownership of private property, the plans to hurt Americans, what's going on right now. As I tell you all, I write papers, I can get A++++. I'm not great on video, so this time instead of going off subjects, there's so many things going wrong. I wrote this down, and I'm going to read it to you all. And I really want for you all to think about this and see what's happened to you in America and how you're being robbed. The plan to end ownership of private property. One may ask where federal income came from before taxes. I've had people tell me, well, how do you think we'll pay for stuff without taxes? Well, it was primarily tariffs. Many contest that the income tax is illegal. They cite the 16th and 5th Amendments. However, Article 1, Section 2(3) of the Constitution states representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union, according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. Notice that it does not say individuals may be taxed, but states. I will discuss the Constitution amendments and paths taken to destroy the family property ownerships and rights of the individual. Amendment 5. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of grand jury, except in cases arising in the land of naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service, in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. People do try to argue that taking money is taking property, but the government has set up a loophole. Much like a police officer taking your license and saying it is owned by the government is why he can take it, the dollar is not considered to be owned by the public. They have also taken away its worth, as it is no longer backed by silver and gold. You can say they have the gold, but they just print paper. They don't care if they have enough gold. So that's the issue there. We have been bamboozled. Many great minds would argue that your home mortgage is not yours, but contracts were signed and rights were conveyed. There have been no rights conveyed by the dollar because it's not backed by silver anymore. It's not a certificate of silver because it actually has no worth except group sentiment. It is not backed by gold or silver. I would argue that taking money is taking property because it is used as means for your support. So I would make that argument. But the government is set up to strong arm us as individuals separately. This is where independence gets into it. Our government is only set up to work for us if we pressure it as a group. You see what these groups are getting? They're trying to get all kinds of crazy stuff, these terrorist organizations, because we're not out there, they are. Visualize for a moment of people and the government, and you may see and feel that we are overwhelmingly outnumbered by the government, but we are not. So like I say, if you close your eyes and think about the government and the people, you generally feel this big oppression by the government. Most people do. You feel like you might break a law and go to jail at any point because there's so many laws. But you don't realize the government's very few. We are the large majority of people. I mean, way larger than the government. But your mind plays that trick as soon as you think of big government. But there's millions of us. Okay? This is because of the everyday encroachments on our life and liberties, what I just stated. Now, all those encroachments make you think it's so big. Now, Amendment 16 has to do with taxes too. It's important. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any censure or enumeration. One would ask themselves why they would create an amendment when taxes are in the Constitution. This amendment gave the government full reign and open authority to tax the citizens. The amendment purposefully and clearly states they can collect taxes on income from any source derived. Wow, that was worth the wait. Any source derived. This is completely open-ended and puts the nail in the citizens' coffins for freedom, liberty, and personal property. The Constitution states the tax levied among the states equally and does not single out individual citizens. So remember that. The Constitution did not say individual citizens. It said the states. That is the complete reason the 16th Amendment exists and was created. The federal income tax was levied by the Union during the Civil War for emergency only. It was quickly repealed with a large sentiment of disdain. The 16th Amendment was set up to rob the citizens thereafter. Other arguments are the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and religious exemption. These are arguments why not to pay taxes, by the way, which some will actually make sense. And I will note that there are plenty of people that say, well, the Supreme Court has ruled against that. You'll see in a minute, actually against most of these things. Actually, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the people at one time. That shows you how many people are in the government trying to rob us. Other arguments are First Amendment, freedom of speech, and religious exemption. The Fifth Amendment of self-incrimination. Let's go through the First Amendment. The reason that would be is if you're trying to exempt things you believe religiously you need, they make a decision on if that's true or not. And freedom of speech is them making you tell them what you've done and where you've sold stuff and all that's your private matters, and you shouldn't have to do that. The Fifth Amendment is self-incrimination. The form purposely states it is voluntary to sign because of these issues. Now, everybody says, why does it say it's voluntary to sign? Because you're giving them permission that you are breaking your own rights to give them information. That's the way I state that best. If you sign, you can self-incriminate. But if you do not sign, they will not accept the form. That is a catch-22. The Fifth Amendment also states that citizens' personal property cannot be taken for personal use of the government. This idea is permeated through the idea that the 13th Amendment abolishes involuntary servitude. You're voluntarily serving the government. It is important to note that the U.S. Supreme Court did rule the income tax as unconstitutional at one point. In 1894, Congress enacted a flat rate income tax. This was immediately ruled unconstitutional. The reasoning, it was a direct tax not apportioned to the population of each state. It was a direct tax not apportionated to the population of each state, which the Constitution states. Although the 16th Amendment did not repeal the previous law, it was ratified and created. The wanted effect of taxing individuals, furthermore, it was solidified by the appointment of a czar called the Secretary of Treasury. All of the law and power of the IRS derive from this one position. There are no checks and balances on the laws created. In fact, it is not a government agency because the Internal Revenue Service was never created by Congress. Statutes were then created to define it as a federal agency. Statutes are not a formal way of creating law through proper legislation. In conclusion, I would be amiss if I did not mention the Federal Reserve Act was introduced around the same time. The Federal Reserve, which is referred to as the Feds, is not a federal agency, but a network of world banks. The whole conspiracy to end property ownership against the people is not a new idea, but has been laid out for about 300 years. Okay, 300 years. I would say more. I would say that's when I knew about it, but we'll get into that later. It is propagated by the Illuminati, Luciferians, Masons, and New World Order members of many other names. They are the Council of Foreign Nations, United Nations, League of Nations, and many others inside our own government. Now, when I say that, there have been they've always tried to, Masons and Illuminati always try to put people in under Thomas Jefferson, talk to Abraham Lincoln, secretaries of state, whatever they can get in, of course, the government and then judges. So you can read it in many manifestos. So I'm not making this up. You can read it in many manifestos, even the Illuminati. There's actually a book out there. But you can read it in philosophies that they helped create. We are aware of communism, socialism, nihilism. We had Nietzsche, Marx, Lenin, Engels. All of those are about taking power away from the people. They say that the people run it, but as we know, every time it ends up with a couple of people up top with power. You're not running anything. You're just a slave. The idea is to create citizen dependence on an authoritative government. They already own the monetary supply to the people through the Federal Reserve, but they had to find a way to get their hands on the earnings of the people. Their primary problem was the Constitution in no way allows a direct tax on the people. We were sold out by the creation of the 16th Amendment. That's what the 16th Amendment did. And appointment of a Secretary of Revenue. Today we see a forced shutdown on the economy and the Fed's continually stating that COVID-19 virus may come back to restrain and subdue the stock market. Now, they say that on purpose because they want for us to fail. The weaker we are, even you haven't thought about people's 401ks probably, older people. You haven't thought about people who play with stocks. You haven't thought about businesses that need their stocks to move. I've seen businesses, because I do mess with stocks a little bit. There was one business that was doing great. They're starting to go up about a month ago, and as soon as the feds came out and said coronavirus, their stock dropped back to 30 cents. They immediately, same day, had to file bankruptcy. They planned one way or the other. Had it went over $1, they could have stayed on NASDAQ, not filed bankruptcy and not get delisted, but they had to because of the economy. They're hurting everyone. Okay, we're living in the age of full control. They have control. They're controlling the economy. They're controlling the monetary supply. They're controlling everything. And they're using this virus to do it. Now, it's a big third play on it. It's interesting how that virus just kicked in and everybody's afraid that 99.7% of the people might die. Might survive. That means 0.03 will possibly die, less than the flu, or the same as the flu. Anyway, the goal is to make people slave-like zombies that are dependent on the state. Does anybody see that today? Does anybody see people wearing masks that in no way could possibly work, that in no way seal around their face, that in no way would protect them, that actually would get the virus on it? And when you go to your car and take it off and take your gloves off, you will then touch everything in your car, and then your car would be contaminated. Then you take it into your house, or all this stuff just doesn't make any sense when you get into PPE. I'm ex-military, pre-med, tons of biology, chemistry. I wouldn't even take gloves off when I clean my pipe. Just a plumber is not that dumb. He cleans a pipe with some acidic chemicals, some corrosive chemicals. When he takes his gloves off, he don't touch them, and he cleans his hand with cold water until he's sure that no liquid is on them. He don't go to his car and throw them in the seat or touch his mask and move it around if he had one, because he knows if you were to put that anywhere, then it's there. You hit hot water and it starts sizzling and burn your skin off. Common sense, everybody. Independence Day. Think about it. It's time for us to be independent. I do want us to be independent from the Federal Reserve. I might get shot tomorrow for this. I do want us to be independent from all these taxes. We used to get the money on tariff. Everybody says, we show pictures of New York in 1912, and they have roads and everything. And people are like, well, how do you think we'll pay for everything? Ask yourself, do we need the federal government doing us? Do we need to know if there are gay bees? There are grants given for that. Do we need to know how worms have sex? Do we need to have all these committees? Do we need to have 26 staffers for one person? If you can't get the job done, I've said it all my life. I got people mad at me in the government. They would work through lunch. Now, it's government, remember, and it's really illegal to break overtime laws. Is one problem I had with the IRS. Overtime laws, working on lunch. To be a regular business, you would get in major trouble for it. To be the government entity who should know the laws and to do it, they couldn't handle their jobs. They were giving them so much that they would work through lunch and then yell at other people they wouldn't do it, but if you did it, you'd be doing something illegal. This is a system. Everybody, I think, at work sees us in some way. Maybe different from me. Maybe I'm more callous because I've worked many ways. God has shown me. I've worked many different jobs, and God has shown me how these people cheat and lie and try to get you to the wrong thing. Don't care about your body. Don't care about you. Some jobs have been worse than the U.S. Army. In the U.S. Army, I knew I was a number. I knew I was there to die if they told me to go over there and try to keep a bomb from coming through and try to take the bomb apart myself. I had to do it if they told me. But I felt more in certain jobs that I was less important and just a number than I did in the U.S. Army, knowing that I would be sent over to get killed. Now, I was a signal corps too. I was sent out places where if they were going to bomb anybody, it would be me. It would be me and my guys, because they don't want the communications. I literally had things to tear apart my communications, radios, burn them down, incendiary grenades, axes, until I got shot to death. That was my whole job, to ensure that nobody got a hold of any of this encryption, decryption device, and I would have to die doing it, or they just hit us with a bomb so they could kill the comms. But saying all that, I felt less important in jobs here in America than I have in Bosnia, Afghanistan, or I would have in Iraq or anything. So, Independence Day, we need to get independent from the 16th Amendment, all these taxes, the Federal Reserve, and y'all have a great day.